Pictures you weren't meant to see, part 1. The baby you see this child holding is none other than her own. Yes, you heard that right. Her name is Lena Medina. At 5 years old, she became the youngest person to ever have a baby. Scientists say she had a condition called precocious puberty, which allowed everything to be sped up, and yeah. Next up, we have Katarina Detzel, a mental patient holding her man. She created this man out of pieces of her bed, and when she was angry, she would fight him, and when she was happy, she would dance with him. Creepy things kids have said, part 1. Walking with my 2-year-old in a cemetery by our house, she says, "Mommy, who is that man in the red jacket by the stone house?" She pointed to a mausoleum. There was no one in the cemetery. "He's waving at me." She waved back. "He's coming over to talk." I was hiking alone in the woods with my son who was 7. It was eerie quiet. Out of nowhere he says, "The woods demand a sacrifice." My daughter was about 5 when she says, "You're the best mommy I ever had." I said, "I'm the only mommy you've ever had." She looks at me and says, "No, you're the 3rd one. But I like you best." Creepy things caught on Snap, part 1. So here we got a boy named Aiden Fucci posting from the back of a cop car asking if anybody's seen Tristan lately. This is Tristan Bailey, who had gone missing, and the person behind it all was the person asking from the back of a cop car. Aiden was caught on surveillance walking into a wooded area with Tristan, and then seen several hours later running from that same wooded area without Tristan. Aiden had stabbed Tristan 114 times, and yeah, here he is bragging with a friend about being in the back of a cop car. He was soon arrested and now sits in jail. Creepy dolls that actually exist, part 1. Let's kick this series off with none other than Robert the doll. In 1903, Robert was given to 4-year-old Gene Otto, and as Gene grew up, he blamed everything bad that happened on Robert. Robert's odd behavior began early on, with him doing things such as moving around, changing expressions, and over the years it's grown darker, with him being blamed for car accidents, divorces, misfortunes, and yeah. After Gene died, he moved in with new owners, who eventually passed him on to a museum in Key West, Florida. Visitors to the museum said that they felt really uneasy around him, had headaches, felt sick. He's messed with their phones. You're supposed to ask for permission to take pictures of him or speak to him, and those who haven't respected him have gone on to have broken bones, been in car accidents, and just overall bad stuff happen to him. Creepy things kids have said, part 2. On several occasions, my son referred to the guy in our old house. "He's big like Daddy, but it's not Daddy." He'd tell me, "Guy was standing in the dark hallway." After no talk of it for several months, one day he suddenly looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "Guy is back." When my daughter was 2, I found her under the table with one of my husband's old children's books, turning pages as if she were being read to. I asked her what she was doing. She said, "Reading with Grandma." My husband's mother died 2 years ago before she was born. It was her book. When my daughter was 2, we were walking above a creek and stopped to look at it. She stared at it silently and then pointed and said, "I died in there." Fairy tales with creepy backstories, part 1. So let's kick this off with Sleeping Beauty. So in the original version, instead of her pricking her finger on a spindle, she gets a piece of flax stuck under her fingernail. This causes her to go into her big long sleep, and instead of a prince coming to wake her up, a king shows up, and he rapes her. She gets pregnant, and while still unconscious, she gives birth to 2 kids, and one of them ends up sucking on her finger and pulls the flax out, and she wakes up. The king who did all this has a wife. Once she finds out about the kids, she tries to kill them and eat them, but she fails and she's burned alive, and Sleeping Beauty and the king are together. Kinda messed up. Creepy things kids have said, part 3. When I told my 3-year-old I was pregnant and had a baby in my belly, she kept saying no, 2 babies. A couple weeks later, it was confirmed I was having twins. Twins were thought to be boy and girl, but 3-year-old kept telling me they were sisters. So jokingly, we asked her when they would be born. She pointed to November 28th on the calendar. Sure enough, they were born on November 28th, 2012. 5-year-old, "Can I marry you?" Me, "No, sorry, sweetie, I have a boyfriend." 5-year-old, "What if he died?" My daughter, from a severe brain injury when she was 11 weeks old, was in a coma for 3 days. For years afterwards, when it rained, she would comment, "Smells like God." Creepy drive-thru stories, part 1. At McDonald's, a car full of naked people drove up and ordered food with paper bags on their heads. I believe one of them referred to another as Mom. While working at Arby's, this car filled with trash came up to the window. When he handed me the money, I got a whiff of a putrid odor coming from the car. The guy was obviously homeless and lived in the car. As he pulled away, I saw 3 to 4 6-gallon buckets filled with urine and feces swishing around in the back seat. Working at McDonald's, I've had a regular customer who drives through just about every day, twice a day, and he is always shaving his face with an electric razor. Every single time. 2-sentence horror stories, part 1. The driver wasn't very chatty, so I checked my phone. "Hey, it's your Uber. I'm outside." My daughter won't stop crying and screaming in the middle of the night. I visit her grave and ask her to stop, but it doesn't help. She went upstairs to check on her sleeping toddler. The window was open and the bed was empty. Creepy drive-thru stories, part 2. A friend of mine worked at an ice cream place. The woman ordered 5 ice cream cones. When she pulled around, she saw that the woman had 4 dolls buckled into the back seat. A guy nonchalantly ordered a slice of cheese pizza while his hands were covered in blood a few days ago. Working at McDonald's at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning, I handed out food to a very nice gentleman. He must have been very nice because the guy in the passenger seat was giving him. And he looked up and he smiled at me as I handed him the drinks, which meant I got to see the driver in all his glory. He had no pants on at all from what I could see, so this seemed premeditated, which was the worst part of the experience. Creepy games from around the world, part 1. South Korea's The Elevator Game, which will supposedly take you to a whole nother dimension. The only thing you need for this game is an elevator, a building with 10 floors, and to be alone. So get in the elevator on the first floor. Then push the 4th floor. Once you get to the 4th floor, don't get out. Push the 2nd floor. Once you get to the 2nd floor, push the 6th floor. Once you get to the 6th floor, push the 2nd floor. Once you get to the 2nd floor, push the 10th floor. Once you get to the 10th floor, push the 5th floor. That's when a woman may enter. Don't look at her, don't talk to her. Then push the 1st floor. If you start going up to the 10th floor, then you know it worked. Once you get to the 10th floor and get out, the woman may ask you, where are you going? Don't answer, but you'll know you've made it there because you're the only living thing there. But the hardest part isn't getting there, it's getting back. Creepy drive-thru stories, part 3. Working at Taco Bell, I once saw a man driving with a kid in his back seat, wearing no shirt and what appeared to be handcuffs. A pair of older gentlemen had taken their weekly trip to Burger King, but this time their car battery died, so they got their car towed home. While getting their belongings out of the car, before it got towed, a Ziploc bag full of old person poop came tumbling out of the back seat, hit the pavement with a satisfying plop, and then exploded. Working at Taco Bell this summer, a guy came through the drive-thru and he was jagging off his dog that was sitting in passenger seat. Creepy things kids have said, part 4. A kid I babysit once asked me to play in the basement, and when we were down there playing, he said, when they put you in a box and nobody can hear you, nobody can hear you down here either. And then he bit me. I was watching a pre-K class while the teacher was out, and this little girl walked up to my belly and pointed and said, there's a little tiny baby in there. There's a little baby right there. I was pregnant, but hadn't told my job. When my son was 3, he started singing a Polish nursery rhyme that my husband's grandmother used to sing to all the babies in the family. She passed away before my son was born. We don't even speak or sing Polish. Door cam footage that'll creep you out, part 1.
Says they offered him candy and invited him to go for a ride. The 10-year-old goes to open his front door, but it's locked. He calls for his mom as the car backs up. Mom! He screams at the creeps in the car and picks up rocks to throw at them.
I was terrified.
Graydon Dowland told me he was walking home from his basketball coach's house outside Salt Lake City at about 6 p.m. when the car pulled up. After yelling and grabbing the rocks, Graydon ran to a neighbor's house. You can see the car fall.
Creepy things kids have said, part 6. One of my preschool students decided to tell us about the man who watches over her from her doorway while she sleeps. She told us that he gets very close to her face, and when she tells him to leave her alone, he disappears. A little cousin came home and started staring at all the Christmas decorations. He said, it will take 11 days. 11 days later, we went out for dinner and an intruder took most of our decorations. I was changing my daughter's shirt and I got a feeling that there was another person around, but we were home alone. My daughter looked behind me and said, she's hanging from the roof, mommy. Don't look. 2-sentence horror stories, part 3. On my way home from work, a homeless man showed me a newspaper article with tomorrow's date. It said I was murdered by a homeless man while walking home. I woke to the sound of the baby monitor crackling with a voice comforting my firstborn child. As I adjusted to a new position, my arm brushed against my wife, sleeping next to me. The girl heard her mom yell her name from downstairs, so she got up and started to head down. As she got to the stairs, her mom pulled her into her room and said, I heard that too. Creepy things kids have said, part 5. When my sister was 4, she walked by my bed and saw scissors. She stopped, looked back at them, and then said, you know I could chop your head off with these. Good night. When my son was 3, we were driving at night and passed a big empty house with no lights on. He pointed to the house, started waving his tiny hand and said, there's a clown in there. I was a camp counselor, and while running a program called Paint the Counselors, a 4-year-old leaned in behind me, started painting my hair, and whispered in my ear, I'm gonna peel off all your skin. Creepy things caught on snap, part 2. The following pictures were taken by 2 girls, named Liberty German and the girl you see here, Abigail Williams, as they walked along the High Bridge in Delphi, Indiana. This picture here was also taken, and it shows a man walking behind them. There's also a video that shows the girls being ordered by a man's voice to go down the hill. police discovered these pictures and videos on the girls' phones shortly after their lifeless bodies were found. The man who was photographed and recorded has never been found, so yeah, that's pretty scary.